Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Inside Out Effect podcast. This is the Big 5-0 and obviously the best podcast.
The Bed Podcast.
On the airwaves at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. And thank you for joining us, and we're pleased to deliver this information to you. And tonight, as I said, it's our Big 5-0, the Big 5-0 today.
It's very business-like, I feel, this podcast. It's really, really corporate.
It's very corporate.
Very corporate.
But it is our Big 5-0 tonight, so I thought we would celebrate it in absolute style.
Fantastic. What are we going to do? Big party, lots of
No,
bangers?
I thought we would. Anyway, moving on. And so tonight is the Big 5-0, and we will be discussing the topic of relationships.
Yes.
So,
and minor stage is now over.
Yes.
But apart from that, we'll finish this, and then we're ending after this podcast. That's it. We're done.
It worked.
Yeah.
So it's about relationships and why we stay in relationships that do not work for us, why we stay in them, and why we find it so hard when a relationship's over.
Yes.
And having experienced that myself, I'm qualified to speak on that particular topic. Yeah. And probably the first one as well, staying in a relationship that wasn't working.
Oh, well,
So do you ever wonder why you stay in a relationship that's clearly broken down and there's no love, but you stay there, a bit habitual? And do you blame someone else or the kids why you can't move on and stay there? And it obviously clearly doesn't work. And or alternatively, are you just struggling with the hurt, the pain, the loss, and the heartbreak due to a relationship being over, and you can't seem to get past it? So we're going to be talking about that tonight on tonight's show. And we're going to be covering why that is, what causes it, and what the solution is, and how we can move on. And I believe you've got some other information you want to input, Jonathan.
I do, yes. And we'll talk about some triggers within relationships, because a lot of people think the relationship's over when it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Yes.
I have been fortunate enough to save a few relationships in my past few years. Not that I'm an expert. I don't believe I'm an expert in relationships, but I have saved a couple of relationships that were on the brink of brink. They were brinking. They were brinking. They really were.
Do you think you might be able to get over the party popper and we could still be mates?
No, I don't know. That's a deal breaker. That's a boundary for me, to be honest. That's a deal breaker.
It is.
I really think that went too far.
Did I go too far?
You went too far. Yeah, you went way too far.
Crossed the boundaries.
Yeah, you tried making it more exciting than it really is, and it didn't work.
It didn't work. It doesn't work. So anyway, I am your host, Stephen Jakes, co-founder of the Inside Out Effect, with this young gentleman here, Jonathan Shaw. I'm also the owner of healingmind.co.uk. And to my right, I do have the wonderful and the lovely, the awesome business partner of mine. He created the DTO system. He's also co-founder of the Inside Out Effect with myself. Thanks, mate. And he's also the author of Decoding Pain, the Emotional Blueprints, Healing.
You can't do it tonight, can you? No, I should say, Mr. Jakes, my good friend and business partner, is suffering slightly.
Very suffering.
Because he's been out for the past 3 nights partying. He's been out jollying it up. And he's slightly hungover.
I haven't done it for so long. It's like years. I don't really drink anymore, so I'm struggling a bit. Anyway, he is the author of the book, Decoding Pain, the Emotional Blueprint to Healing Chronic Pain, as well as the DTO Handbook. Like I said, I've got the wonderful and amazing Jonathan Shaw. Hello, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us again in this marvellous studio of ours. So how you been?
I've been all right. I've been good. I've been really busy. Yeah, I've been super busy.
Super busy? Lovely.
Super
busy.
I've had some different things come up. I've had some injuries and things that's starting to come back to me now.
Your injuries have come back?
No. People with actual injuries. So for quite a while, I've been treating chronic conditions, but I've actually had some injuries come back.
Yeah.
You know, people starting to injure themselves. Now they're going back out and doing things again.
Yeah.
So now we're actually out of the house and we're actually in life. And we're doing exercise and doing hobbies and sports again. I'm actually getting injuries come my way, and it's amazing how many people just they just always do the wrong thing for their injury. They always think if I do this, it baffles me. I know people get told that you do this, and this. You know, like people always go rest ice and things like that, but you should only do that under certain conditions. That's not for all conditions. That whole rest, ice, elevate is not
Yeah.
for everything.
Yeah.
And people's first response sometimes put ice on something, and
But
you
it
shouldn't always put ice on
it
it.
sounds good because it makes them sound like I know what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, but it's
like just let go and move on.
yeah, I know.
Just let
It's
go and
like-
move
it's
on.
let go
Just
and
get
move
over
on.
it, man up.
I mean, it's like one of my clients. I helped fix her wrist pain. So got rid of her wrist pain in 2 sessions. She had it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with the wrist. It came from trapped nerve in her shoulder. But then I saw her recently, and she asked me about her knee. Lovely, lovely lady. Really, really like her. But her first thought was, when she was thinking about knee, was to strengthen it. So she started doing squats to strengthen it. But unfortunately, when you do squats are designed to strengthen specific muscles. They do kind of strengthen the whole legs as a unit. Kind of, it's a general strengthening exercise, but it strengthens the back and the front muscles, so the hamstrings and the quads. It doesn't do the inside and out ones, but the inside and out ones were the problem, not the quads and the hamstrings.
Right.
So actually, the inner muscle, the inner thigh muscles, in this case, were the problem. So by doing the squat, she's actually making her body weaker and her knee weaker because the inner thigh muscle was stopping her from doing a squat properly because her leg kept collapsing in because it was too weak to maintain a simple squat. And I say this consistently. People's idea is to strengthen their muscles first. And you very, very rarely strengthen the muscle first. Very rarely. I know there's a lot of therapists out there. That's what they do. They like to strengthen you first. And that's why I see a lot of people in pain, because all they've done is strengthen the damaged muscle, or they've tried strengthening the wrong muscles, or they've tried strengthening all the muscles at once rather than isolating the muscle. And that just doesn't work. And it made me chuckle. I did have a little chuckle. Obviously I corrected it, showed her what was wrong, but it's important for people to know, and I don't expect people to know because they're not experts in exercise and things like that. But it's important to know, don't just strengthen something. That's what I'm trying to get across. If you have an injury, don't think I must make it stronger, because that generally doesn't help and actually often makes the problem worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So other than that, you've I believe you wanted to bring up your Russian friend.
My Russian friend.
Yes, Kitskov.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah. So, sorry, no, I couldn't remember. That's very good.
Yeah.
Good segue. So, again, this week, I had a friend who messaged me about her son who was having a cough, and he'd had the cough for a couple of weeks. It was a chesty cough. And I just...
I thought it was Kitskov.
It was kids cough.
Is it a relative of his?
It was kids cough near chesty cough. In the sticks somewhere out in the countryside. So basically, I mean, this friend of mine, she understands DTO. She's probably watching tonight, and so I just told her to do a basic healing version of DTO, where you put your hands on, you do DTO for the other person. And within a couple of sessions of her doing that for her son, his cough cleared right up, really, really quickly, really simply, and again, absolutely amazing response. Just from understanding a bit of basic DTO. I've had quite a few people now using that basic healing technique to get really good results with their kids or their pets and things like that. It's a really good technique to use when you can't communicate with the other person and can't ask them, well, what's going on. It does not necessarily going to solve the whole problem, but it will help alleviate and sometimes get rid of the problem, or at least remove some of the symptoms until you can get more more professional help.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Right, so we've got a few people just said hello. So Jane Haley Cock, good evening, our regular good old friend Jane.
Hey Jane, love Jane.
Hello to you, Laura.
Hey Laura.
Got Joanne, if she's what you are still watching. I know there's a party waiting for me, but I've got to do this, I'm afraid, first. And anybody else that's watching, good evening. And I believe Bobby's probably watching as well. So anything else that you want to talk about, really?
No, there's a few things to talk about as I go along. Something came up this week, but it's very relevant to relationships. So it's about the filters that we put in front of our eyes when we have trauma, and that does fit very well with relationships. There is one thing I do want to say that kind of fits relationships, but it is about everything. So when you get into dealing with the mind and dealing with emotions and your thoughts and feelings and things, people actually start trying to analyze what's wrong.
That's the problem.
And that's the problem. And the problem is that people do that naturally, but when they start trying to understand what we're doing, they then try and understand where something comes from. And there is a difference between being aware and analyzing. There's a difference between being aware of yourself and aware of what's causing you problems or triggering you, and actually analyzing the problem. So I want to establish what the actual difference is. So to be aware is brilliant. To be aware of yourself, to be aware of your triggers, be aware of your behaviors, so you can start correcting it is excellent. But you don't need to analyze where it comes from. If you're just aware, what that means is that when something happens, instead of blaming the other person, you ask yourself, right, well, how am I feeling about that? So you might be feeling angry. And then you'd ask why you're feeling angry. And you might be feeling angry because that person's not listening to you. And that's it. You then don't ask, well, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Because now you've got
why is he not listening to
Why
me?
is he not listening?
Yeah.
That's now analysis.
Yeah.
You only need the general awareness of the emotion you're feeling in the moment, in the example, frustration or anger, and why you're feeling it. Why is that interaction affecting you, or why is that situation affecting you? Not where does it come from. Just go with those two things. Once you become aware of those two things, just become aware of that and then leave it. Put it aside, move on with your life. That is awareness. That's awareness of how you're feeling things in the moment. You don't need to analyze it. Even if you want to change it, you don't analyze it. We just use DTO to switch that off. But we don't analyze where it comes from. So be careful, because you can get into this cycle of starting to analyze things, and we don't want you to do that. I had a client I spoke to the other day, and she was getting into this state where she found herself, and she's fascinated by it, and she loves the concept of it. But as we all do, as I did, and even Stephen did when we first started, we get into this idea of analysing everything around us and the way we're behaving and what we're doing and all of this, and we become almost obsessed with it or addicted to it, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You just want to become aware briefly of your response and why your response is that, as in what, you know, if you feel angry, then you feel angry you're not heard or not being listened to, or you feel angry because you can't get your point across, or you feel powerless. Whatever it is, but then leave it. Don't try and analyse where it comes from.
Yeah, and so I mention this all the time. I've actually made a video about how we do that, how our brain processes the three brains, and why when we go into the logical brain, we go into trying to understand it. And basically what we do is as soon as we become aware of something, that's the symptom. So as soon as we become aware of it, it's too late. It's not actually the cause. It's that you're in the effect. The problem is if you try and analyze and understand from the effect, you're only going to think from it, and you're just going to make up shit and believe the shit you make up. And unfortunately, you'll then, I say this every week, then what you're going to do is you're going to then go, oh, that's what it is. And then it's an imaginary problem now that you've created. And now you'll go and try and find a solution to the imaginary problem. And then you solve that imaginary problem and you wonder why the problem's still there. And then you'll go back, oh, hang on a minute, well, it's not that. I'll make up some more shit. And then you go and believe the shit you make up. And I have done a really good video explaining exactly how that works, which I send to all my clients, and it blows their minds away because it just makes so much sense. But that's the problem with understanding and analysing anything really, especially when it comes to our emotions and even our pain as well. So yeah, exactly.
Cool. Good. Right. That's back. So how you been? You been good?
I have been. I'm not feeling so great now.
No, I know you're not feeling so great now. You're a little bit. I'm expecting you to fall off the chair any minute, to be honest. Just sort of go sideways.
Yeah.
As you're talking to me.
It's been great.
Which will be funny.
Yeah, it's been great actually. I've been really out and about. I mean, generally, like I said, I don't drink anymore. I don't really, but I've been out. But it's this week because I've been quite quiet this week.
Yeah.
You know, I go for them phases of, but I've been really quiet this week. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and have a load of fun, socialising and partying. So met some amazing people. We had a festival in town, a food festival yesterday in the town, and it was so great. I went there, I must have seen 50, 60 people that I haven't seen for 5-10 years, old friends. A lot of them, which really come at me, I love your podcast. I lay in bed watching it, which actually I've got to turn around and say, so Paul, Mr. Stern, I did say I'd put a big shout out for you tonight. So if you are watching, because I know you probably are, it was really good to see you. And so it's a big shout out to my mate Paul, who, unbeknown to me, wouldn't have guessed it in a million years, watches our podcast. Wow. And absolutely, I had so many people come up to me and say that they watch it.
A lot of people say you watch the podcast. Yeah, nobody says to me I watch the podcast. Really I don't hear anyone tell me.
You haven't got any friends.
I've got no friends. That's what it is. You are literally my only friend. So I only communicate with you. Yeah. So that's all it is. Yeah. If anybody else would like to be my friend, please call 0800 911 242 and leave your CV, your hobbies, what you do for a living, your belief systems, and the winning person will be pulled out of the hat at 9 o'clock on Wednesday evening. Thanks very much.
No, great. So yeah, that was really good. And so obviously I want to say hello to Julie as well, for good old friend Julie. She said hello, hi guys. I was
Hi, Julie.
with Julie and Sam last night, and I also spent a lot of time with the gorgeous, lovely Sam. So I know you're probably in bed nursing and licking your wounds because you did say
Are they that flexible? Wow,
Yeah,
that's a very good trick. If you can do that,
Right.
then there's no point leaving the house.
the
to be
lovely
honest.
Sam struggled. She had to go home because she couldn't do it anymore.
Could she
So,
not?
No, we did.
Oh.
I mean, it was just a really great night, and so a big shout out to all those people that I would say hello.
And
anybody else that
why
I missed
wasn't
out,
I invited to this great night?
because you weren't.
Right.
I went out with you Thursday night. Anyway,
That's awkward.
So anyway, I just wanted to also something else. A friend of mine, the gorgeous Louise, right? She's a really good friend. I call her the meme queen because she's always sending me amazing memes. She's a gorgeous soul. But she sent me this meme that I thought I'd share with you because it's actually quite pertinent. And I think that, a lot of us sometimes aren't generally ready to take action to heal, to solve our problems. And sometimes you probably know as well as I do, we try and tell people, give them advice. I mean, I was speaking to three gorgeous girls in the courtyard on Friday night, and they was doing the same thing. They've got a friend, she's broken, but she won't. They're trying to tell her, look, you need help, but it's not landing. They're not landing, and so they're getting frustrated. And I just thought that this is quite a key meme that she sent me. So Louise, thanks for this. But it says you cannot force someone to comprehend a message that they are not ready to receive, right? But still, you must never underestimate the power of planting a seed, which I think is so important, because when you do plant that seed, the subconscious takes it on, and then when they are ready, they will take action with that. So I thought that was a great meme. So
That's true. Yes.
so other than that, I have been quite quiet, but I've actually been, the people that I have worked with, funny enough, all been relationships, which sort of really made me think about doing this week's episode on relationships, because I see a lot of stuff going on with the relationships. But I had a client come to me who unfortunately had an affair, and that broke their relationship. And the person that he had an affair with left him. A few months, and off they went. And he's basically been in the impact of that for about 18 months.
Yeah.
Like he says it's got to the point where it's an obsession. He can't stop thinking about it. He's feeling it's getting him down. He can't concentrate on work.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he had 18 months. He'd been going to CBT, counselling.
Yeah.
18 months he'd been going for this. And anyway, an old client of mine who done some work around there recommended him to contact me. So he reached out to me, and anyway, I had him here, and obviously he told me the story about, he had an affair and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I was able, so what happened is he'd stored the images, the emotional responses and all the rest of it, of what happened in that relationship.
Yeah.
And he couldn't move on. He was really struggling. But anyway, I managed to get rid of the whole thing in 45 minutes for him.
Wow.
So, and I said to her, like 18 months of doing counselling and talking, 45 minutes, the whole lot was gone. And and I texted him the next morning, and I was like, how are you with it? He goes, I haven't even thought about him. He goes, it's not, there's no emotions there or anything. Okay. And he hasn't even got the urge to go on Instagram and look at it. So brilliant. 45 minutes. So that's been a really good one for me as well. And then I know another client of mine who I've been working with, a really old friend. He's been coming to me for some help with regards with relationship, because he was struggling to tell the person that he's with, I don't want to be with you anymore.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to be with her. And ultimately, he's staying there. He's already got the person. There's already another person in his life that they've already arranged to move in, but he can't bring himself to just say, "Look, it's over."
Yeah.
And so I was helping him, obviously, switching off all of the stuff that he was making up about saying it. How he didn't want to hurt her and all the rest of it. But the longer you're dragging it on, and the longer you're not being authentic, the more pain and suffering you're going to cause your kids, yourself, and other people. Which is, which we all do, and for some reason we're all crazy like that in many ways. I did it myself, but anyway, I switched all those responses off, and as far as I'm aware, he was leaving and going to go home and tell the awful deed or the awful words to the person that he was going to leave her. But he was been stuck in that for ages. Yeah. So and there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of stuff he'd made up. He was a really nice guy. Didn't want to hurt her feelings. He'd been with her for quite a long time, but it was over. So yeah, there was that. And then his daughter, we was talking about, she had his daughter. He brought his daughter to me because she had for her whole life, she's had anxiety about eating in front of people. Yeah. So every time it's dinner time and there's food around, massive panic attacks, sweats up, can't do it, can't eat in restaurants, can't eat out of her friends, can't go to McDonald's. As soon as they're out with her friends and they go, she has a meltdown, panic attack, can't eat at home in front of her mum, her dad, or anything in the family. So it's really impacted her whole life. Yeah. Again, went and sought experts and never really solved the problem or anything. Anyway, so she come to me. I found out, I just went to all of the triggers, what it was all about eating in front of people. And she told me all of those responses of what she felt and what she was experiencing. And I just managed to switch the whole lot off. And it took me about 50 minutes. And I got a text message 3-4 days later from my mate. He said, look, my daughter's just sent me this. He said, I'm out in a restaurant eating with the family. Tell Steve he's done a bloody great job. So Brilliant. In 50 minutes, I changed. She's only a 17-year-old girl.
Oh,
so, and that's going to impact her for the whole life. So I've had some absolutely quality results. Even though this week I've been quite quiet and been partying like a little cheeky youngster. And I'm suffering today.
You're suffering today.
Yeah, I am suffering today.
That's how you're doing okay. You don't look too bad. You're doing all right. Just make sure you stay upright on that chair.
Yeah, I will do.
Yeah. No, I had a girl months ago now, and she had a similar. Well, she just she was reluctant to try new foods. She was struggling to just experiment and try new foods.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of other issues around food, and again, it was a very simple process to switch it off. It was just a lot of fears and different things.
Yeah.
But she tried loads of things. That's not what originally she came to me for. We switched that original problem off, but she came back to me for the food thing. But some of it stemmed from beliefs from her mum years ago and the way her mum is with food and things like that. It's a very common thing to have stuff about food.
Yeah.
It's very, very common, especially these days, and especially young people. They have a lot of
yeah, well, I mean, personally, when my relationship broke down, I had a real problem with food because I obviously used to do all the cooking.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a chef on the quiet. So I'd come home, I'd cook lovely meals and we'd sit down. It'd be my thing. Like, I'd come home from work and I'd treat it to a beautiful meal, sit down and we'd have that. And so when we split up, every time I started cooking, it kept triggering all of those loss and losing my boy. Yeah. And I had a real trouble for about a year with it was like I walked in the kitchen and it would just hit me. I'd get really down. I would cook, and then it's a very strange thing. Obviously, I switched all that off now, and I haven't got a problem with it. But the food thing affected me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, people don't realise that. I mean, food is a massive trigger for people, and people think that when they're getting heartburn or indigestion or they get stomach problems, that it's the food causing it. It's not. The food's triggering the conflict. Yeah. It's just reminding you, whatever you're eating, it's reminding you of the conflict that you went through while you was eating that food. That's all that's literally happening. Yeah. And so then your stomach is reacting to it. That's all that's happening. You're not allergic to the food. But the body reacts because it doesn't want you to remember the conflict. So it doesn't want you to eat that food, because if you eat that food, it reminds you of the trauma.
Yeah.
So it tries to keep you away from it. But in reality, that it's not causing the problem. It's not the cause. It's just a symptom of the problem.
Yeah.
So food, especially in relationships, people often have like a favorite food or favorite restaurant they go to, and these things that trigger you when you break up, which is what we're going to cover.
We're going to talk about, and also songs as another one.
Everything.
Well.
All these triggers are actually very relevant. Maybe you used to cook for your partner, Steve says,
every night,
or used to cook a special meal.
Yeah.
If you used to cook a meal for your partner and then you don't, and then one night you cook it for your new partner, well, if you end up with heartburn or stomach problem, don't be surprised. That's triggering a conflict. So it triggers acts like that, and we don't realise. Even just a particular spice or herb that you might have used. I'm getting really subtle now because triggers can be really obvious or really subtle. But these are sort of things that trigger us when we've left a relationship. And we're trying to move on. Yeah.
So I've got a few more people made some comments on here, so I just want to read them out. Hello, Beth. How you doing? Good to see you. I didn't see you. I thought I was going to see you last night, but I didn't. Joanne Amos. Can you cure COVID? I need to be at that party.
Have you got COVID?
And if you do, how do you know you've got it? Because if you've taken a PCR test, the PCR test isn't designed to detect infection. So have you actually got it? So the PCR test is flawed. They don't tell you anything. Actually,
don't think of things as COVID or flu or pneumonia or bronchitis. Don't think of it like that.
Your body's responding.
Think of what your symptom is. So if you're having problems breathing, or you're coughing, or you've got a runny nose, or you're hot and sweaty, that's a symptom. Okay, so that's one of your symptoms. Actually, it's not. It's a reaction. Your body's reacting. And then you go, right, what caused that? And then I would find the trauma and I would switch that off.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to things like that, it usually is based in you're resolving a conflict.
Yeah.
You've moved into repair and you're resolving a conflict.
Yeah.
So
we don't remember. We say you don't catch sickness and illness. No. We never do, and it's just your body reacting to something in your environment, or like you're resolving a conflict from the past. So, like we told you earlier on, when your body will be in a state of stress when you've got the conflict running, and then as soon as the conflict's resolved, you go into repair. That's when the symptoms come out: the pains, the coughs, the aches, and all the rest of it. And here's the thing. So I mentioned this last week on the podcast. I was Polax for 2 days. I could hardly move. I was cold, sweating. I ate everywhere, sore throat, cough, couldn't think straight, couldn't sleep. I was in a really bad way. And I was like that for 2 days. Now, anybody that have had that, when, I've got COVID, right? Yeah. Well, actually, so they would have been the symptoms that they're telling you what they are. So had I been a normal person and not known what I know, I'd have taken a PCR test that doesn't tell you that you can catch it, that can't even detect illness, believed the test, said I've got COVID, now I believed it, right?
Yeah.
But that's not actually what really goes on. So what happened to me was someone in my family lied to me about having receiving the jab after spending a year telling them all the information around it, but they lied to me about it. And when I heard that lie, the shock of the lie, because it'd been going on for 6 months, hit me so hard, which was on the Thursday. So it put me into stress. And then there's always a 3-day period till you go into repair. On the Monday, I was hit for 6. Now, how did I get rid of it? I phoned up Jonathan. I said, listen, mate, I'm really not well. And it worked out that it was that caused it. And then all we did was switch off all the responses that I had about that person lying to me and how I took it and how it affected me. We switched off all the responses. And by Monday, I was back in the gym training again. Yeah. No, not feeling sick. No, none of this. Right. And I was in a bad way. I could hardly get out of bed on the Monday.
No, you were rough. I know when I spoke to you, you were rougher than
exactly.
I've heard you for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and all I did was switch off all of the responses from the person lying. And then my body instantly healed. We don't, you see, and if that was the case, and if we believe what we're told, is I would have said, I've caught it, have the test proves it, and then I would have believed that, and I would have been in bed for 10 days doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just not the way it works.
Our bodies do not work like that. And I don't care what you believe, what you've been told, whatever. And I had this conversation with several people last night. They said to me, well, and I was talking about viruses, and I said, we don't catch a virus. And they went, so one of them said, I listen to your stuff, but I don't necessarily agree with it. And I said, okay, what don't you agree with it? And he said, well, that you don't catch anything. I said, and how do you know that? And he just looked at me and went, we didn't have an answer, because he doesn't know why he believes he catches things.
No. There's the problem. You believe it because you've been told it for so long.
Yes.
So our beliefs are indoctrinated into us.
That you catch stuff.
It doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's a belief that you catch something, or whether it's a belief that the sky is yellow, or it's a belief, whatever the belief is, you've been told it for so long. So when someone comes along to challenge that belief and says something's that's not true, it's very challenging for the brain to cope with that, especially if we identify with it.
Yeah.
Over the last year, when I met Steve challenged my beliefs, because he's studied so many things about the world and those things that I didn't, that he's told me that are not true, that's challenged me. But I didn't make it about me. So sometimes we can make a belief about ourselves. We can identify with it. And if we let go of that belief, it means something about us. I didn't really do that in this, but I have had that in the past.
I got to tell. I can't just tell this. So this clarifies the whole 3-day people get sick. On the Friday night, I was chatting with these 3 girls in this restaurant, in the bar, and this girl, I was talking about what I do, and then she said, "Oh yeah," she goes, "Well, I was in hospital on Wednesday because I was on a drip because I had really bad food poisoning," and I said it wasn't the food, and she just looked at me. What do you mean it's not the food? I said, you didn't get food poisoning because of the food. I said, so when did you go in hospital? She said on the Wednesday. So I went, okay. So I went, what happened on the Sunday? Go back 3 days. I said, what happened on the Sunday?
Yeah.
And she went, I don't know. Nothing happened, did I? And she turned around to her mate who was sitting next to her. And she went, what happened on Sunday? Did anything happen on Sunday? So she gets her phone out, obviously goes onto WhatsApp or whatever, and went, yeah, you told me that your daughter got really, really sick.
Oh, there you go.
Right? And not only this, her husband also got food poisoning. So I said, something happened in your environment that affected both of you.
Yeah, exactly.
You both got affected by it. So something happened on Sunday that affected both of you, something you can't stomach or digest. And then 3 days later, you've gone into the repair, which is the food poisoning.
Yeah,
they both got it.
Yeah.
and it was their daughter, and she just looked at me completely. She goes, "How did you know that?" I said, "Well, how did I know that?"
Exactly.
How did I know
that?
I don't know.
How did you know?
I've never met
Exactly.
this girl in my life. She lives
No.
in Wickford and whatever. And
That's
I
right.
literally said, "No, something happened on Sunday," and
That's
her
right.
mate went,
Oh yeah.
"Oh yeah," and there was complete proof of that's how it works.
So my friend who I mentioned with her son, and she solved the cough in her son. She actually had another friend. Now this friend of mine, she's really taken all this on board, and she's gone off and learnt it, and she's now looking at other websites, and she's really starting to understand it, which I think is great. And she has another friend of hers, and her friend went through a conflict. And my friend said to her, in about 3 days' time, you're going to have a cold and a flu. And literally 3 days later, she did. She predicted the symptoms she was going to have before she had it, because she knew the type of conflict that creates that symptom. You can't do that with anything. You can't predict the exact symptoms someone's going to have. But you can with this, because you know what organ reacts to what conflict. So you can pretty much be really accurate and know how that person's responding is going to affect them in their body. And her friend does know that she understands it, so she's okay with it. But that is literally the way it works. I know it's a new concept for people, but we're only saying it because it will get you better. I mean, if you look at it like this, it will get you better.
Yeah.
We're not saying it to be, I want to say obtruse. That's a really posh word. What's that? I'm not saying it to be challenging or to be, make you angry. We're not trying to upset you. We're telling you because we've done it over and over and over again.
And solved it and healed
solved
people.
it in loads of people. And then the body heals naturally after clearing it, that we know it's true because we've done it. And if you're coming from a place where you don't believe it, that's just because you've not experienced it. But the thing is, you've never done it, so you don't have
there's
the
an also
information.
element of we've been so brainwashed by the TV, the media. I mean, like at the moment, what's sad is that people will believe celebrities, paid TV presenters, newsreaders, and politicians, right? Or even you're actually believing what they're telling you, and yet the experts who work in these industries are saying the complete opposite of what the people on the TV are saying. But yet, most people are confiding and putting their trust into celebrities, TV presenters, newsreaders, all paid for people on the TV that in the fake world, and the politicians that lie about everything, rather than all the experts that are saying completely the opposite. And this is what's sad, is you're not actually listening to the experts, you're listening to these people that and the other thing as well is they're telling you catch stuff, and we know categorically that we don't. We solve it in people.
And before you say what about doctors and nurses who are apparently experts, well, the thing about that is,
paid for ones, or the ones that are actually doing the real work.
These experts are coming out. I mean, Dr. Hillary came out and said, when you're giving mouth to mouth, throw a towel over their face. When you do respiratory system, throw a towel over so they don't catch COVID. This is clearly a moron.
Yes.
This is not a sort of, and he's a medical doctor.
He's on telly, so,
No, but what I'm saying is don't necessarily believe someone who's a doctor and nurse. The only person to believe is someone who's resolved the issue for people. If they resolved it and it's got better and it's solved the problem, you want to believe that person, not the person who says something but it doesn't solve the problem. That's like hiring a plumber and the plumber goes, well, it's your pipes. You need the pipes changing. And you change the pipes but it doesn't solve the problem. Well, he didn't know what he's talking about. So you've hired the wrong person. If someone who knows what they're talking about solves the problem. The thing is, in this day and age with the medical system, we think that maintaining and controlling the symptoms is the answer. So we go, well, that's okay. They're doing a good job. Yeah. Bollocks. They're not doing a good job. You shouldn't have symptoms. You shouldn't be ill. You shouldn't go through life being sick and diseased. This whole concept that we have that illness and disease is normal is bollocks. It is not normal. It's become acceptable. It's become acceptable, but it's not normal. Yeah. And so many people are suffering because they don't understand the true cause of illness and disease, and you're constantly believing people are there to keep you sick. And hang on a minute. Sorry, I treated a nurse the other day. Now she's a nurse in a hospital. She's a general nurse, and even she gets this. She didn't want to go to the physio and the doctor with her shoulder because she knew they weren't going to treat it. Yeah. She knew they weren't treating the cause of the problem. She loves her job because she loves working with people, but she doesn't like the treatments. She knows the treatments are there managing symptoms and they're not solving a problem. And she's experienced traditional medicine with her shoulder. It just made it worse. And this is a nurse talking, and I see a lot of nurses and even a lot of paramedics. They say the same thing because actually those are really good people, and they struggle with sometimes the medical profession and the way it works because they know it's not treating the cause.
Yes. So anyway, I
didn't bang the table though.
No, you didn't bang the table. So anyway,
Brilliant.
that's the answer to that. And again, we've tried to give you the evidence to support that. But again, it's your belief. If you want to believe that there's all this stuff floating out around there that you're going to breathe in and make you sick, then you're entitled to that belief. But the problem is that belief will keep you sick over and over and over and over again, because the chances are the thing that's making you sick is a conflict. So if you don't resolve the conflict is just going to keep making you sick. Simple as that. So, and you're going to believe you caught it. Anyway, so moving on. Relationships. Yeah. So let's move on to relationships, because, like I said, I've done quite a bit with relationships, and you know, and the more I do this, the more I learn about what's going on with people and relationships and what's the cause and effect element. But like I said, so what we're going to be covering now is. Do you ever stay in relationships when it's clearly broken down and there is no love? So we're staying in relationships, it's dead, it's over, we're just there. It's a codependency. It's a contract. It's not a relationship, which I want to come into as well, between contracts and relationships. They're two different things, and what is actually a relationship and what's a codependency, because that's also something else as well that we get stuck in because we confuse codependencies with relationships, right? So we're going to cover that. Also, as well, do you blame someone else or blame the kids for not moving on? Oh, I can't leave, you know, the kids, I'm doing the best thing for the kids and all the rest of it. Making an excuse and staying in that relationship, even though it's toxic. And the problem is that staying in that relationship because you think you're doing the kids a favor, the chances are you're damaging them very, very badly, because what you're actually doing is teaching them a model of a relationship that doesn't work. So when they go out in the world, they're going to repeat that pattern and create that in their own relationships. And you wouldn't really want that for your kids if you was, if you really loved them. So, and also as well, are you struggling with the hurt, pain, loss and heartbreak due to a relationship that's over and cannot seem to get past it, which I've experienced because I'm a soppy old git, really.
We've all experienced that. That's what happens.
Crying in me Ovaltine at night.
You've been crying in Ovaltine?
I really
You've got a big mug, haven't you? What you just sitting in a mug of Ovaltine crying?
I know. So and we've all done that and we've all experienced it. And, you know, and again, some of these are triggers which you're going to talk about as well, because the triggers are key. So what we're going to talk about that now.
Okay.
I know you've got
so now you tell what do you think, why do you think people stay in a relationship that's not functioning?
But there could be two reasons. There's obviously a conflict that hasn't been resolved. There's a lot of guilt and shame. There's a lot of resentment, either one way or the other, and or there's a lack of communication. They don't agree on something, and so therefore they will then they can't resolve the conflict, and then they're now in the emotional response of that, and then there's that you know, that negativity. And if it goes on for too long, you get a disconnect. You feel like you're now disconnected from that person, and you feel like you can't talk and nobody's listening, when actually there's realistically, potentially, in a lot of cases, that conflict can be resolved. But then there's other cases where it generally is over and there is no love and there isn't anything there because of whatever. Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes, you know, you meet someone from an attraction level, you're really attracted to them, and then they're the best thing since sliced bread. But then over time, you get to know them, the personalities clash. There's control issues. One wants to be in control, and you know, and also as well, you get a lot of abuse. There's a lot of relationships are abusive, and what we do is we make that okay.
Yeah,
we make things okay that aren't okay. So, you know, the way that we talk to our other partner can really initiate hate, regret, anger, and that doesn't work. And so if you're in a relationship like that, you need to get out of it. I'm sorry, but there's no resolution there that you can do, because you're making something okay that's not okay.
Yeah.
And the chances are that you feel guilty about that. And so that's what keeps you stuck there. And you also have fear of the fear of moving on, or how that, if you've been in a long-term relationship, you have this fear of how the other person's going to act if I get a new relationship. Is he going to come around and start threatening to beat the boyfriend up and all the rest of it? So you've got all this stuff going on. So there's lots of reasons why, but why they don't work, there's a multitude of reasons. But, you know, I generally think it's probably communication or conflict that hasn't been resolved.
Yes.
You agree?
Yeah, a lot of things come down. People...
Glad you agree.
I do agree.
Thanks.
I do agree, yeah. There's a self-worth issue in there as well. There's often a self-worth issue where either the man or the woman don't feel they they're going to meet anyone, or no one else is going to want them, or they're not finding anyone better, or and sometimes that's a problem. But a lot of times in relationships, people don't realize that they wake up one day and they think they've fallen out of love with their partner, and in reality that's not always the case. It's just a shock they've had that's made them view it differently. And if you actually remove that shock, you actually fall back in love with your partner again.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the case of long-term relationships, you've just
Bit
got
more
to the end,
difficult, yeah.
bit more difficult,
Yeah.
because obviously you've had so many shocks happen, so much trauma, it's just sort of died a death. But I've had some people, they've had the odd little trigger in a relationship, and they were going to end the relationship based on this trigger and a couple of triggers, and they were very tiny things. And as soon as I switched them off, they was like,
butterflies and rainbows again.
Yes, butterflies and rainbows again.
Yeah.
And I've had one couple got married after that happened, and this person, she's lovely, but she was thinking, well, I can't handle this. But as soon as I switched the triggers off, it was nothing in her head. It wasn't a big thing. And I've had other people where they didn't realise that. So one of the keys is that you both have to clear things. If you're in a relationship with someone, you're both not clearing things, you have a problem. I treated a couple once. Well, I didn't treat the couple. I treated the husband, and the wife was going to counselling. But the problem was they'd had a massive trauma. They'd lost a child.
Yeah.
Massive trauma for a couple.
Wow, my daughter would have been 23 today.
Yes. Oh, yes.
She would have been 23 years
right.
old. Happy birthday,
Yeah.
Eden. Love you.
Yeah.
Just like that. It's a bit weird that you said that.
It's a bit weird. So obviously,
But yeah, I did lose a child.
But they lost a child, and but in this particular scenario, the wife had never gotten over it, and she was kind of blaming the husband, and it wasn't actually his fault. It was nobody's fault. Nobody did anything about it. But this shock, this grief, had caused their relationship to separate. Now, that's a very difficult thing to resolve unless you both heal the trauma of that shock.
Correct.
If you don't both heal it, you're going to end up separating, and for no reason at all, because you don't need to. That is not a reason to separate. That's a trauma you've been through that if you resolve it, 98% of the time you're going to come back together again and be in love and be okay. Those are not reasons to break relationships up, but it happens all the time. And it doesn't have to be a trauma like that. That's quite a really unusual trauma. It's an extreme thing. But you can have lots of things happen that are big shocks that break up a relationship when they don't need to.
I mean, I stayed in that relationship for another 10 years, but after my daughter died, that relationship was dead. And I stayed there because I had two other girls, and I sacrificed quite a lot to stay there for the girls. But that did kill my relationship. Yeah, it just killed it dead. And it didn't matter what I did; I could never get it back to how it was. So I sort of get it. But then obviously I didn't know what I know now. I was also a different person, and all the rest of it. I was a lot more younger. I think it's early, mid-20s, late 20s. So I saw it from quite a messed up 20-year-old because so I do understand that, and it can have that effect. It definitely killed my relationship.
Yeah, it does. And with men, certainly, a couple of years ago before lockdown, I treated a guy who was depressed, and that alone was affecting his relationship. So what he was doing was he'd had a shock, and for 3 years he was suffering depression, and the longer it went on, the more he went inside himself. And he just disconnected from his wife and his kids, and it was drawing a wedge between their relationship. It was stopping. When you're in a relationship, you have to connect with the person. It's very, very important. You must connect to that person. If you do not feel connection, if you withdraw from that person, or the connection loses, you feel the connection gets lost, and it stays that way, then it draws a gap and a divide in that relationship. And that was certainly the way it was going. Now, fortunately, he got recommended to me. His wife was also having treatment as well. And we switched off the depression, and he was then able to almost instantaneously reconnect back to his daughter and his wife again. And their relationship went almost back to normal in a couple of weeks because we'd switched off the trauma. And in that particular case, it wasn't a trauma between them as a couple. It was an outside trauma. So one thing that's really important to recognize is if you are struggling, not all traumas that break relationships up are within the relationship. This actually had to do with something outside of the relationship, something almost completely neutral, but was affecting the relationship. It was affecting his son, and that was putting pressure on them. But work can do it. You can. If you have a shock or something happen that causes you to go inside yourself and you disconnect, and that stays there for a long time, that's going to break the relationship up, whether it's the relationship or not.
Absolutely.
So just be mindful of that. If you feel you're going inside yourself, especially blokes, because blokes tend to do it.
Yeah.
If you're going inside yourself, you're feeling alone, you're trying to analyze things, you're going deeper and deeper inside you. Give someone a call. Get yourself out of that.
Yeah.
Give us a call, because that is going to divide. It also separates from just general relationships out in the world, and disconnection.
I've been clearing this week.
You have, yeah, and that's why you've been going out.
I've been going out clearing it. Yeah, I've been clearing it. Yeah.
So Steve was clearing a deeper issue about connection, and when we cleared that, he then suddenly got his invites to things and was going out. So although we might have to switch it off because you're now hanging. So
I am hanging a little bit, but it's okay. I'm man enough to deal with it.
Yeah, but it's important you recognise not all relationship blocks are about the relationship. It can be an outside shock.
Yeah.
But just don't. I recommend to everybody that you both need to work on things. Now, this is an important one. So I've been treating a lady who openly admits she has relationship sabotage. Okay, and she's in a new relationship, and she openly admits she's been sabotaging it, and she says this guy's wonderful, he's amazing, but because of her past, she's sabotaging.
Yeah.
Now, we've been working on that, and she was getting needy, she was getting clingy, it was all due to her self-worth, and she was getting panic attacks because she was worried about being abandoned. So we switched a lot of that off. However, what was happening, which to all intents and purposes now, I've heard it's not happening, because I did speak with both of them. When someone is like that, if you have one partner that is traumatized, the other partner may not be doing anything wrong. The other partner may not have done anything. But sometimes their response to what their partner's doing is the thing that fuels the problem.
Yeah.
So if your partner's being needy and clingy, or they're attacking you for some reason, or they're being abusive, your response to it is going to fuel that if you're not careful. So whatever response you have, if you do have a negative response, that means, although you may have nothing to do with what that person's saying, your response, you're being triggered because you're feeling attacked or you're feeling not listened to. It doesn't mean you've done, in this particular case, sometimes your partner accused you of something you haven't done. If you're being triggered, if you're having a negative response to that, it doesn't mean that you've actually done that thing. It just means you're now making it personal. And then your response will then trigger off the other person another way, and it will then ping pong backwards and forwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
The trick is, when someone does that, when someone has a problem in a relationship, is to stay calm and speak some calmly. Not make it about you. Listen to them and speak calmly about it. If they are behaving in an unreasonable way, do your best to not get triggered by that, but ask them why they're behaving like that, or try and calm the situation down. But don't get angry and start hurling abuse back. That's one of the things, the mistakes people make. If someone hurls abuse, we hurl abuse back.
Give as good as you take.
Give as good as you get. That doesn't work in a relationship. If you love someone, I have to be very firm with this couple. Do not insult, criticize, or shout at each other. Because if you do that, you don't love. That's not love. If you are criticizing, insulting somebody because they've done it back to you, that's not love. There are multiple reasons why people do it. It doesn't mean you don't love each other, but it's not a loving thing to do with somebody.
Well,
so
I think if you've gone that far that you're actually doing that, then I think that something's missing.
Well, no, I mean, generally,
people don't do it to their dogs when they love their dogs.
No, they don't. But the dog's not saying anything back to them.
Doesn't make any difference.
No, I get that, but the person's being triggered. So what I'm saying is, if you're being triggered, you need to take care of your trigger, because your trigger, I mean, this couple, they're a lovely couple. They do work together, but her triggers are from her past, and his triggers are what she's going through, because he's never been through it. He doesn't understand it. So they're both triggering each other off. They're both having a response, and then they're both mimicking each other and hurling abuse at each other and swearing at each other.
A bit like us on a Saturday night.
It's a bit like us on Saturday night, yeah. But it's not acceptable behaviour. Don't accept that, and don't join in. Don't start doing it back, because now you're just fueling the problem. I really want people to understand that, because that is one of the biggest things that pulls people apart when they start doing that. And it's childish, to be honest. It's just, you're now entering into child behaviour. If you're just throwing abuse and hurling things at people, if someone is being abusive to you, you don't need to be abusive back. You just stop them and go, stop. Why are you speaking to me like that? Please don't talk to me like that. Speak to me. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me why you're upset. but don't swear at me, don't criticize me, there's no need for it. Even if you have done something wrong. So if your partner has done something wrong, tell them how it made you feel, but don't criticize and blame them for it, because they're going to get on their high horse because they're going to feel attacked.
Yeah.
So you need to do it in more of a subtle way and explain, look, sweetheart, I felt like this.
But what we're doing is just it's adult. What we're all talking about is adult communication. It's talking about adult. I just want to say. So this is a great statement. Is I love myself enough not to accept unacceptable behaviour, especially from those I love.
Yes.
And that's what we do all the time. We make things okay that aren't okay. And generally that's that's other people's behaviours. And the reason is we don't stand up, we don't put a boundary in place. We react negatively to it. We don't say anything. And basically, in theory, what you're actually now doing is you've unconsciously given that person permission to carry on doing it. Yeah. And it will continue, and it will get worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's another problem with why that will go, because it will get to a point where it becomes unbearable and you can't deal with it because you're not adult enough to say, whoa, you can't talk to me like that. It's not okay. Like I said in that statement, So it is really about communication, and it's being adult enough to recognise that and not react. Yeah. But
don't get me wrong, we've all been there. Yeah. We've all done it, and we've all made that mistake. Yeah. But ultimately, if you allow that person to keep... I don't do it anymore either. In a lot of scenarios, I would tell the person that's not on.
You knob.
But fuck off. So
no, don't talk to me like that. It's not okay.
That's not okay, is it? No, seriously. So you don't tell someone that you love. You don't swear at them. You don't accuse them of things. You don't blame. You just have a conversation with them. Now, if they then attack you back, well, again, you don't want to put up with that behaviour. Now, one of the biggest fears around that is losing the person. That's one of the biggest fears of people with relationships. If you stand up to your partner, if you state what you will and won't accept, you're worried about losing that person. Yeah. I had this conversation with a client of mine the other day, and ultimately that comes down to your self-worth. As Steve, as you just said from that message, it literally comes down to your value.
It's a great statement.
It's a great
I
statement.
sent that to a friend. I don't know if she's watching, but I sent it to her on Saturday. I love myself enough to not accept unacceptable behaviour, even from the ones I love, because the ones that we love, generally we give them permission to talk to us like shit, and it's not okay. It isn't okay.
Yeah, and that phrase, that classic phrase, you always hurt the ones you love.
Yeah.
What is that about? Who made that up? Did O.J. Simpson make that up?
Because that statement reaffirms that it's okay to make something not okay.
It's not okay.
It's wrong.
It's one thing. It's okay to be angry and hurt, or fearful, or resentful, or something like. It's okay to have a feeling, but to then hurl that at the other person, whatever the scenario,
it is a weird paradox.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, it is weird.
So try and avoid that, because that will then lead to resentment, which will then pull to create a massive void.
Or try and avoid meeting or having a long-term relationship with someone you don't like.
Well, yeah, okay.
That might actually help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would help, Steve.
I hate you, but I'm going to stay with you. Which again, actually talking about,
I need to have an adult conversation with you.
You can't have adult conversations.
Can I not? No.
I have tried.
Okay, all right, fair enough. When did you try? When did you try? You just sat there and spoke about sitting an Ovaltine for trying to solve your problem. Since the day I
met you, I believe.
No, exactly, yes.
No, but this goes on to, I want to just talk about codependencies in relationships.
Go.
So one of the things that I see, and we all do all the time, is we have a codependency, and that's where we meet somebody who fulfills something in us that's missing. Okay, so I don't know if you get that. So and what happens is that becomes a contract. It's not a relationship, because a relationship is not contractual. It's a relationship, and we get confused with that person gives me something. Yes. I get something from you that makes me feel good. Yes. Right? That's a codependency. And so that's what generally happens. And now what generally happens is that person will do that for a period of time. But then you keep taking it and they keep giving it, I always give and they always take. What happens now is that person will all of a sudden go, what am I doing? Why do I keep doing this? I shouldn't keep giving that to you. And then they stop doing the thing that you have been attracted to or you get. Now what happens is you now no longer have that thing that they give them, and now you're going to go, you don't do that thing for me anymore. you don't provide for me anymore, right? And we confuse that as love. Oh, you don't love me anymore.
Yeah.
No, because it wasn't love in the first place, right?
No.
It was a codependency because that person was fulfilling a need in you. And when that person stopped doing it, you no longer have that. Now you've got that thing missing in your life. Okay. And we all get confused with codependencies. Now, when we're in a codependency, it's a contract. It's not love. It's not a relationship. It's a contract. You do this for me and I'll do that for you, right? It's not a relationship. It's not love. But also what happens is that them contractual codependency relationships will never, ever work in a million years, and they will always fail and break up. And that's why when those relationships that you have are codependency and contractual break up, that's when they get really angry and really violent, and they hate the other person and they detest them, and they do everything in their power to detest that other person. And the reason why they do that is not because of the other person, it's because that person has taken something away from them that they no longer have: money, security, this, that, or whatever it is. And now you hate and resent that person because they've taken that thing away from you that's now exposed the thing that was missing in you at the beginning, which was missing in you. And that person has now filled that void in you and makes you feel whole and complete. And when that person removes, you're now empty again. And you then blame that other person for all the pain and the suffering and the loss that you're experiencing. But ultimately, you need to be complete and fulfill yourself in order to, when that person leaves, you haven't lost anything. You just go, okay, fine, ta-da, it was nice meeting you. Didn't work out for whatever reason, ciao, ciao, bye. Okay, so there's a big difference between codependencies and contracts to actually a loving relationship. So, and there's three people in a relationship all the time. There's you, the other person, and the relationship. And what you should be doing is investing unconditionally into the relationship, not it's about you either way. And that's where it all breaks down, and that's where the psychology of it breaks down, and that's where ultimately a lot of the conflicts begin.
So should we give some examples of the types of codependency, like the types of the responses that people rely on other people for?
Well, you can cover that if you want.
Oh, do you want me to cover that?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
I've just expended a bit of energy. I'm hanging at the moment.
Do you need a rest now?
I need a rest
now. Do you need your Ovaltine? Do you need to go and sit down?
Bit of
water. So, so the things that we rely on for others to provide for us are generally emotional responses. Sometimes it be external things like money and things like that. But that's
all that does that is elicits the emotional response of security, safety.
That's right. Yes.
That's what we do.
That's right. And so most of the time it is just an emotional response, like not feeling alone anymore. So if you feel alone and then someone comes into your life and they don't make you feel alone, you want them to not make you feel that way. But if they then go off and do something without you, you're going to feel alone again. Yeah. See, that's not good. So you're relying on them to not make you feel alone. And
also another one quickly, I just jumped in my head, is sometimes even if the relationship works, you will fight to hold on to that other person because of an insecurity in yourself. You'll feel insecure. Oh my God, I've got to look after the kids. I can't do it all on my own. How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for that? Oh, I can't be alone. So there'll be an insecurity element as well that will get triggered. And that's why we try and hold on to the person, not let them go or move on ourselves because of the insecurity. And also, and this is a big one, is the fear of judgment from friends and family. Because what if I leave him? Because I projected this fake life to everybody. Yeah, exactly. Oh, we're the happy family and everything's great. And when we're out, we're laughing and we're joking and it's all good and it's all on Facebook. But behind the scenes, it's shit. It don't work and it's angry and it's shouting and it's shouting and screaming. But we project this fakeness, and now you've got to go, because you've got to admit that isn't. So now you can't say you have judgment of your friends and family. Go, but I thought you and Sally or you and Dave were all right. Well, no, you see. So there's also another reason why you will stay there is because of that fake projection that you've put out there isn't true, and now you've got to openly admit somehow that that's not real, and you're worried about what your friends and your family will do because you can say you can't leave him. We meet someone, it's there for life. Your mum or your dad might say, well, no, you can't just walk away like that. What about the kids? What about this? What about that? Well, the kids are messed up. They're shouting and screaming all day long. What are you talking about? No, but you can't leave him. You have to stay there. That's what you do. It's life and that. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it can be resolved, but sometimes it doesn't. So that's another reason why I would stay in a relationship, even though it's not working.
I thought you were going to have a rest.
I
You
was.
Let me speak
I
for
was,
a bit.
but
That rest didn't last very long.
it didn't. No, actually,
it's
something
like-
you said triggered me.
It triggered you into
yeah.
it.
It did. It's okay.
That's like, well, no,
Is
no,
it?
it's not. I won't accept that.
It's
We need to have
unacceptable
another
behaviour.
conversation. It's
We don't need
unacceptable
to-
behaviour.
yeah, it is unacceptable.
So no, he's absolutely correct.
Apologies.
That is it's absolutely correct. But going back to the different types of codependency, so you got your lone one. The biggest one is love, relying on someone to or wanting someone to give you love. And if they're no longer giving that to you, well, it's the end of the world, and you hate them and stuff like that. Abandonment as well, worrying about someone abandoning you. You know, like my clients, she wanted to make sure this person wasn't going to leave her. Well, that goes back to lone response or a loss.
It is, yeah.
You can't if you're walking through this world and you don't want people to leave, or you're so worried about people going, then you're not, like you said, secure in yourself.
Yeah.
You don't
You
value
feel
yourself.
incomplete. You're not whole.
Yeah,
And that person's filling that void in you.
that's right. And the problem with that is that people are always going to leave your life. You can't keep everybody that comes into your life, and that's not your job to do that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I had this issue when I was younger. I had to love one when I was, I always wanted a woman to love me. That's why I wanted someone to love me. I want someone to love me. I want to be loved. I want to be loved. Oh my God, why doesn't it love me? I
can tell you why.
Yes, well, yeah. So you said you never mentioned that again.
I wasn't going to.
Right. So it was just a one-off time. It hadn't happened before.
Yeah.
So I'm on medication for it now. So
I can't believe
I've lost my
someone-
train of
I
thought
can't
now. What
believe-
was I
I
saying?
can't believe someone that heals people's on medication.
yeah, I know
mean,
exactly.
you're a hypocrite.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I had that thing where I want to be loved, and ironically, it actually took a shock to snap me out of that. So a shock actually reversed it. Usually a shock puts us in the same, but every now and again, we were talking about how shocks cause negative things.
Yeah.
Sometimes a shock can create a positive scenario.
Yeah.
So a shock actually snapped me out of that, where I no longer relied on somebody else to give me love. I just buy chocolate. So, so my girlfriend was with me, and I buy a lot of chocolate the other day. So it's like the fridge is full of chocolate. But what I was doing is I was relying on a woman to try and love me, and I wasn't loving myself back. So now I don't actually do that. I don't actually look to be loved by my girlfriend or anyone around me, well, except you.
I don't love you, though.
No, don't love me. No, exactly.
I like
you.
you.
Like me.
I do
That's
like
good. Oh,
you.
you are awful.
I know.
Right. Anyone remember Dick Emery? No, never mind. So, what did I bang the table for? So, because I'm no longer looking for that love, I am no longer trying to constantly get it. And if I'm not feeling love one day from her, it doesn't affect me. I'm not curling a ball, crying, "Oh my God, why does he love me anymore?"
Yeah.
And I feel more secure in myself because I'm not worried about being abandoned or the relationship breaking down or not being loved any longer. I'm just being me in the relationship and being present to it and enjoying the relationship. And I love my girlfriend very much. If you're watching him, hello. But this is the problem. This is what I used to have. So you've got the love one, you've got the abandoned one, you've got the alone feeling. There's other things, like security. So just try and, if you are in a relationship, try and think, what am I getting from this relationship that I don't want to lose?
Well, there's another one as well. It's being where you need to control it.
A control issue.
There's massive control issues,
Yes.
and I see that a lot in women where they're trying to control everything because and the only reason why I want to be in control is because at a subconscious level they don't feel in control, so they keep doing more and more and more and more because they're not doing enough, and they're trying to control everything because they don't want anything to leave them or go away, something to happen. But actually, the more that you do that, the more you're actually pushing the thing away, and you've already got the outcome that you've already agreed to. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more you try and control it, the more it's going to slip away. It's like holding on to sand, the harder you grip, the sand just runs out of your hands, and it's the same thing.
Or maybe put a bit of water in the sand.
Well, yeah.
They sort of grip a bit better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
So
But also we'll go on to, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is struggling with the hurt, pain and loss and heartbreak due to the relationship being over. And that basically, ultimately, is what we've just been talking about. So when the relationship's over, you will then have those experiences because of the thing that you've lost. Okay, so, and that's basically it. And so those emotional responses of being hurt or pain and loss are emotional responses. It's the loss of security. It's the loss of of whatever it is that's
the
going
loss
on.
of love, the loss of affection,
Yeah.
the loss of romance,
Yeah.
the loss of joy, happiness, the loss of that thing you've always wanted, the loss of the marriage or the future. One of my clients was loss of the future that could have happened.
But the thing that I've had this week is the person can't believe that they did that to them. So it's not actually really about them losing the relationship. No. It's more of an ego pride issue. How can they? Because I can't believe you've done that to me.
I'm such a good person.
I can't believe. Why would you do
that.
that to me? I don't deserve that. I've done everything for you, whatever. Yeah. So, and a lot of the people that I'm clearing that's their response. They're not actually really generally hurt because they know the relationship was over. They've been arguing and shouting for ages and ages. They don't do anything together. Dave sitting on the sofa with a massive beer belly, watching flipping Only Fools and Horses, drinking 4 cans of Stella. Lovely. And but so the relationship's over. Sorry, Dave, if you're watching. It's 4 days ago.
My name's not Dave. It's Rodney.
You know what I mean?
Anyone who watched Only Fools and Horses?
The relationship's done. But as soon as the relationship's now over, it's now. Oh, I can't believe it. Well, that's actually what you really wanted it, and that's what's really, really going on because you're actually now saying, "Well, I can't believe he left me." Even for 20 years, you wanted it to be over, and then when it actually happens, it's more about the fact that it's about them leaving you. It's not really about the relationship because again, it's a codependency. It's not a relationship.
And again, that blame thing will actually keep all that emotional response running in any scenario, whether it's a relationship or not. Yeah. If as soon as you blame someone for a situation or something happening, you're then holding that emotional response in place. If you just stop blaming and recognize your part, and then the emotion will actually dissipate. You won't need to necessarily go and clear it with somebody. You'd actually find the emotion will dissipate quite quickly.
Just take ownership and be responsible for your own responses, for your part. Absolutely.
Yeah, for your response to it
all the time.
Yeah, if you feel hurt, that's not the other person's fault. If they came at you with a baseball bat, all right, that's fair enough. You could, but even so, to carry on blaming them is going to only harm you more emotionally. Yeah. So even if something did happen like that, to blame them is not going to help. Let that go. Be responsible for as Steve said, for your response to what's happened. So even if someone's done something, it's your response that is causing you the pain. If someone has hurt you, upset you, attacked you, it's your response. It doesn't mean you can be around those people anymore, or you should. It doesn't mean that those people are good to be around, but ultimately it's your response to it that will make you sick, ill, and struggle to move on to the next relationship because you'll carry that through to the next relationship. There'll be lack of trust, and you just won't be able to.
Well, here's another thing as well as I see a lot is that a lot of people, women, when the relationship or whatever's going down, then it does break down in your net. I see a lot of women becoming very alone. They have a massive and alone response. They feel alone. They feel like they're on their own. They feel like they're doing everything. They're not getting any support. And what happens is in order to, because we're now in that horrible, we've been polarized or the pendulum swung into a negative state where we feel alone and we're unhappy and we're doing it all alone. So you're doing more and more and more and more and you're getting more and more and more alone and you feel like disconnected and just completely like you're feeling really alone. Don't have any more time to say alone.
But you're feeling alone.
But what happens now is the upside of that is what you'll then start doing is you'll start people pleasing.
Yes.
You'll start going out and doing things for other people, not because you want to help other people, it's because it makes you feel good and it will also resolve the conflicts of feeling alone temporarily.
Yes.
And what will happen is it'll make you feel good. You no longer feel alone. Then all of a sudden that will then drop down and you're back into the negative state. And then you're going to have to do something else that you need to people please. And the problem is the more you keep doing that, the more people become reliant on it, right, as well. And then you start saying yes to doing things that you don't really want to do. And that's going to piss you off even more.
Yes.
But the problem is now you've conditioned yourself because you can't say no. Because subconsciously you've learned, well, if I do that for somebody, that's going to make me feel good about me. I'm not actually genuinely wanting to help that person. It's making me feel good about me. So that's another problem that happens with the relationships of being alone. That's what you can tend to do. And you might end up then start overcompensating in the relationship.
Yeah.
Which then becomes obviously overpowering and controlling. And then the other person is like, whoa, it's just too much. So that's just another issue as well,
Yeah. And trying to please someone in a relationship as well. If you're trying to please them all the time, again, it's not a good state to be in. It's not your job to please somebody. It's not your job to make someone happy. Well, it's your job to make me happy.
That's it.
But
it was the other way around.
It was the other way around. See, I don't think this relationship is going to work. We've both got different ideas, different perceptions of it. I think we should end it now.
We're experts on relationships. We're going to be all right.
We'll be okay. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Move on. No problem.
No problem. You switch over me.
No attachment whatsoever.
No. Okay.
The thing is, though, I mean, the whole thing we're trying to be. I mean, the whole thing about relationships, and we said, didn't we? We could do 5 podcasts on this, and we probably will do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just one small increment of what's actually going on in sort of bullet point. We have tried to touch it on what's generally common, but I think we're going to go into a bit more detail about other things within relationships and all the rest of it.
We're going to break it down because actually, relationships is just such a huge ball of string for people. There's so many things to relationships. I was saying to my girlfriend the other day, but 2 of the biggest things to clear in people are relationships and money, because there's so many different branches off
and beliefs
and belief systems. So you've got the main tree of the problem, but then you've got so many branches to that. With relationships, so you've got meeting people, then you've got dating someone, you've got talking to somebody, communication. Then you've got
being authentic,
being you.
Exactly, which so many people find hard to do.
Exactly, liking yourself, not caring if someone doesn't like you back. And that's only the early stage relationship. Rejection, that's only early stages. Then you've got being with someone, falling in love, connecting with someone, allowing them to know you, intimacy. Then you've got kissing, making out, having sex.
Yeah.
And then you've got
that's
spending your life with someone.
I swear that's what intimacy is.
Oh, so I thought you meant intimacy connection.
Well, okay.
So
I was thinking on the more dirty intimacy.
More dirty intimacy like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you and a girl in tub of Ovaltine, really,
cup of Ovaltine,
really getting it on.
Yeah.
Intimacy is broken into different things. That you can be intimate with someone just looking in their eyes. A lot of people, especially a lot of men, they struggle to make eye contact with a woman. Women, they don't. Most women aren't that. There's obviously some women who would be able to do it, but a lot of women can, whereas most men can't.
But they won't have eye contact with you if they don't like you. So look away.
No, they will do. But often when you're trying to communicate, holding eye contact with someone you communicate is very important. And so sometimes it's something as simple as that makes the difference between connecting or not connecting. And then you get onto more advanced stuff like sex and relationships and being intimate in that way and kissing. And
we've just gone through all of those. How can they be more advanced? We've just already talked about those.
No, I mean more advanced than just eye contact.
Oh,
that's what I mean.
Yes.
So relationships are huge, just like money. There's so many branches to it. So as Steve said, we're going to cover it in more detail in different podcasts and just break it down one thing at a time. We want to give a general overview, but we've all been through breakups. The one thing that because now I get it.
Do you? That's because you're with Emily. That's why.
That is what it is. But no, our friend Greg, you always just say, do you understand it or do you get it?
Yeah, do you understand it?
And there is a real difference between that. This
understanding it and actually landing
is very different. And while I understood before that I need to be secure in myself and not want anything from somebody else, I never really got it till this shock snapped me out of it. Once this shock snapped me out of it, I really get it. That I don't need to rely on someone else to give me something. Yeah. I want someone in my life to add to my life.
Correct.
But I don't want someone in my life to give me something. I don't need that from somebody. But it wasn't, I totally get that now. But before,
but like I said,
there was an emotional glitch.
3 people in the relationship. There's you, there's them, and there's the relationship.
Oh, yeah, the relationship.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone's generally in a codependency.
Yes.
That's that is the biggest problem. They're in a contract. They're not in a loving relationship. They're in a codependency contract. Yeah. That's when you need to go, right, actually, that's the time to then no longer be in that relationship, because it's just going to be it's going to end up in carnage, tears, pain, hurt, loss, and like that.
Yeah,
that's dancing.
Dancing last night.
But
the important thing is, once you recognise that and move out of the relationship, you still need to heal that in you before you move on.
Yeah.
So one of my clients.
Otherwise, we'll just repeat it.
You just repeat it. One of my clients, she's got lots of chronic pain. She's a lovely, lovely lady. She just got out of a relationship about 2 years ago now, actually. But the reason that she had such a problem in relationships is because she always feels alone.
Yeah.
So when she desperately wants to be with someone, but when she's not with someone, she feels desperately alone. And when she is with someone, that she feels alone, so that person acts in a way that makes her feel alone.
Yeah.
So every relationship she's in, she starts off okay, but then the alone feeling kicks in, and then that person doesn't listen to her, doesn't connect to her, won't do anything for her.
And that compensate.
Yeah, so she then feels more alone. Then that makes her frustrated, angry, and ultimately the relationship breaks down. Then she's on her own, and now she feels alone again.
I just said something else as well, because I had a friend over here for dinner last Thursday, funnily enough. Bless her, she's a gorgeous girl. And we was chatting, and she asked me a question of why do people stay in relationships that don't work? And I said, and one of the things that came into me was investment. The problem is that you believe that you've invested so much time, effort, and energy into somebody, a situation, or the house, or whatever it is. That actually to move away from that isn't because you don't. It's because you feel like you've invested something. You've invested so much that you'd actually rather stay in your bucket of your bath of crap than move out of that.
And
go, well, I can't get out of that because it's a waste. I've spent 20 years. I've invested all my time, effort, and energy. I can't leave that, so I'm going to stay in the investment, even though the investment is a big bath of crap and it's really crap and it stinks and it doesn't work at all. You're unhappy. You're miserable. Instead of getting out of that bath and getting into the nice clean bath with all the bubbles, you can't do that because that bath of crap is all the stuff that you've invested in. Stop smiling. Right?
I really want a bath now.
Yeah, I know.
Nice
but that's what goes on. So we do invest, even though it's a bad investment.
Yeah, no, we do.
It's an emotional investment as well, and we can't move away from it. Even though we really need it, we should do it. It's best for the kids. It's best for me. It's best for him. It's best for her. But we won't do it because we've invested in something.
That's right.
And it becomes about control and power and all the rest of it. And you go, well, I can't do that. Yeah, and that's another one as well. Investment.
Yeah.
We can't walk away from what we've invested in.
Yeah, because we think we've wasted those good years of our lives, or we think it's been
obviously aren't that good because you want to leave.
No, and it hasn't been a waste. Hopefully, you've learned lessons from it. It hasn't been a waste. There would have been something in it that was very beneficial. But do you really want to waste more years of your life?
What do you mean I can't? Can't's just a belief.
What did you call me?
I can't.
Oh, you can't.
No, I honestly people go, well, I want to, but I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean you can't? Can't's just a belief.
No,
why do you believe you can't?
Don't get me wrong. We're not saying it's easy.
I'm not trying to say everyone leave their partners, by the way. It sounds like I'm trying to just disrupt, smash everyone's relations out.
Exactly. Just
I'm not
doing
doing that. I'm just basically talking about what I've done this week.
I actually like keeping relationships together, and so I've actually learned it because I was always fascinated by relationships because I find them fascinating, and I could never get them to work for me. I'm much better at it now. Thank you very much. But I never could. So I went to learn all this. Yeah. And when I found DT, I learned all the triggers and all these other things that cause the problems. And it's been very interesting, as I've said many times on this podcast, being in a really good relationship with someone, how you can still sabotage because of your past. And that still comes up for both of us, and we both work through it. But in a relationship, you both need to work through things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you both have issues.
Again, it's adult communication.
Adult communication.
That's all it is.
But we want to keep you together. We don't necessarily want you to split up. We want you to recognise things so you can heal it and stay together.
But the person knows whether it's working or they know when it's done. We just make excuses all the time to stay there because of investment, because of abandonment, because of all the things we just talked about. Generally, that's really what's going on there.
Yeah.
So
is there anything else you want to say on that?
There was, and it just left me. There was actually something that popped into my head. I couldn't think what it is. Okay,
well, while you're thinking about it, I'm going to say one more thing. And it covers relationships, but I want to talk about what happens when we have shocks and if we try and analyse. So if you've got...
Down there at the beginning.
No, I want to give a visual image of it. Okay? Yeah. So if you're in a relationship and a shock has happened in that relationship or you've had multiple shocks in that relationship, then what's happened, that's going to alter your perception of that person. But what you're going to do, you might analyze that relationship, but you're going to analyze it wrong. And I'm going to show you why. I think I've done it on the podcast before, and Steve said it very clearly, but I want to give you a visual demonstration. When you have a shock, a filter goes in front of your eyes. So if you try and analyze, you're no longer analyzing from the real you. You're analyzing through that filter. And so all analysis is now based on that filter. So that filter might be labeled with fear, anger, resentment, bitterness, and you're trying to analyze through that.
And it becomes blurred.
Yeah, and it won't work. And then you get more filters on top of it because every time you analyze, a new filter goes on top.
And you're adding to it. It's like filling up that pint with glass with water. You just add more and more, and the glass fills up more and more and more.
Exactly. So you're not going to understand it by analyzing it through the filter. The only way to come out of it and actually understand what's really going on is to remove the filter. When you remove the filter, then you can see the truth of what's happened and what's gone on, and then you know how to resolve it. And I just wanted to give that very clear, because a lot of people, you know, I said at the beginning, one of my clients, she was in a relationship, they've been together for a few years, for about 5 years at this point, and she had two things happen. They shocked her, they were only small, but all of a sudden her perception was, now it's not going to work, I've got to end it, I've got to get out. This was a false perception. As soon as I removed these two shocks, her perception was, well, no, he's fantastic, he's great, and then they got married, literally about a year later. So we actually proposed to her about 5 weeks later, and she said yes. But they got married a year later. So
Wasn't that nice?
it was nice.
I know. I'm still waiting for that moment.
Well, I'm not going to do it yet. I want to wait for
you
to get. Oh, I see.
It's Alan next door.
It's Alan next door, is it? So basically, there's 3 people in our relationship. It's you, me, and Alan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want you to bear in mind that if you're trying to fix something, you don't fix it from that filter.
Yeah.
You have to remove the filter before you can see the truth. And that's just something I really wanted to clarify, because I had a client speak to me about that, and it really helps.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we might as well leave it there for tonight.
Okay.
I think we've done, well, it's an hour and 20 minutes. So, and I think, you know, we had 100 people at the start of it, and because we've been talking about relationships and told a few truths, we're now down to 3 because everyone's been triggered, realise what we've talked about is going on in their life, don't like us and hate us, and going to watch Poldark on Channel 4.
Really?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
no, I don't know.
Is that on Channel 4
I
now?
don't know. I don't watch TV because it's all nonsense programming crap. So why would I sit and watch that? Fill my head up with shit. No, thank you. Anyway, so we're going to leave that there. Thank you for all of you who have stayed the course and listened to us talking about relationships.
Have you had any more comments?
Yeah, but I can't read them out. They're rude about you.
About me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's nice.
No, what I said was what Julie said. I'll be your friend, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's nice.
Isn't it lovely?
Oh, 'cause he ain't my friend any longer, so...
Yeah, Sandy says I watch your podcasts. Jane, I watch your podcast, Jonathan.
Sandy does watch... Oh, thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Jane.
So you have got a couple
Appreciate
of
that.
friends.
I've got a couple of friends. That's nice.
That's nice, yeah.
I've got a few friends. That's nice.
I think that's moving on. So anyway,
I now feel confident enough to leave you from this codependent relationship and move on with my new friends.
Good.
And we're all going to get together and do our own podcast, just the 4 of us.
Yeah, nice.
And talk
That'd be
about
interesting.
you.
Great.
It's going to be about you.
I'm
I'm going
used
to
to people
blame.
talking
I'm
about
going to
me.
blame you for why our relationship ended.
Oh, great. I need to move on from that. Right. So, yeah. So, anyway, so we probably might even do another podcast on relationships a little bit later on and go into the other areas that we discussed earlier. And hopefully that, you know, the information that we've given you tonight actually resonates with you and you understand that. And either you're able to do something to heal it, or you need to either do something to get out of it because, you know, for whatever reason. So you will only know that. We're not trying to tell everyone to go and leave their partner.
No, that's not.
You know, that's not the point. But we do. I see so much codependency. I see so much abuse going on. I see so many children getting damaged because they're in big. And they do because of this. Because of that, they're saying it. So, and you need to know where you are in that, and only you will know. So anyway, so yes, so like I said, we're probably going to do a few more in relationships. So we'll end this one tonight. So I want to say thank you for joining me again in my studio.
That's okay. No, thank you for having me.
That's right.
It's
good.
nice to be here.
It's nice to see you here.
Nice to
So have you got anything else to say before we leave?
No, just have a lovely couple of weeks. Do we know what we're doing in the next one? We don't, do we? No. If you have any suggestions or you want anything specific, then just drop a message.
This is our big 50. We've done so many podcasts now.
50.
I mean,
Wow,
50
50.
tonight, yeah.
I don't feel that much older. Really.
I don't know. Shall I do another party popper to finish it off with?
Have you got another party
No,
popper? No.
Yeah.
No. I think. Well, you can't go and get it quickly.
No,
The
no,
excitement's
that's right.
building.
No,
I mean,
I can't do that.
I think we might have Shoxton with the
Yeah,
party
exactly,
popper.
yeah.
So they've now got to go and switch that off.
I know.
So you know, then otherwise they're not going to be able to watch the podcast if you give them too much trauma.
I'll save it for the next one.
And obviously, you
Celebrate
know,
the
flashing
51st
lights and
podcast.
loud noises. We should have put a proclaimer.
Yeah, what? You walked 500
I
miles?
was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, great.
What's the
Just
word?
watch a podcast.
No,
Disclaimer.
We should put a disclaimer on the beginning. I couldn't think what the word was. We should have put a disclaimer on the beginning. Be careful, beware of loud noises and flashing lights.
Yes.
Flashing
lights. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to work with Jonathan for whatever reason,
You're insane, clearly.
Yeah, obviously you're insane.
I can't even speak.
No, I couldn't earlier on. We've just changed places.
Well, we
now.
just swapped over.
Yeah, so if you want to work with Jonathan, then go to his website, thedtosystem.com, and if there's anything that's come up or you want help with anything with what we've discussed tonight or any other issues regarding mental health, emotional health, PTSD, trauma, limiting beliefs, whatever, we can get rid of all that. You can just delete it and your life will go back to being amazingly spectacular. And you can reach me on healingthemind.co.uk or go, if you want to listen to any other of our podcasts. See there? I did that.
Any are they behind you?
Behind me?
Where are they?
Yeah.
Are they sitting in the corner, are
Sitting
they?
in the corner with all the
There's
alcohol.
There's just alcohol
I
in the
know,
corner.
from my party.
That's
that
why he's
nobody-
hungover. He didn't really go out. He just sat in his house
Still
drinking
left
the
over from my
alcohol.
party from everyone that bleeding didn't turn up and didn't drink it. But anyway, so we're going to drink that this weekend, by the way.
Oh,
No.
next weekend. Next
11th.
Saturday. The 11th. Yeah, the party.
Next Saturday, yeah.
I know,
So
11th, yes.
good job we're not doing a podcast
I
next
was going to
Sunday.
say,
though,
no, it's not. Yeah, you wouldn't be there.
I'll be in the right state like I am tonight. Yeah, so feel free to contact us if you have any
Feel
trouble.
free what?
Everybody that's stayed the course, thank you again for watching.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you in a fortnight's time. Again, we don't really know what it is we're going to be talking about, which is normally what happens on most of the podcasts.
I
But
know,
anyway,
yeah.
no, I'm being a bit harsh. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate everyone who listens to us, and we hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. Have a great night. Speak safe, guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao. And have a really good fortnight, guys. Loads of love. Bye.